I moved out here to retire in peace, a little two-bedroom cabin on the edge of Silver Pine Lake, just outside Ashford, Missouri. I spent most of my career as an environmental engineer working with state water management. And when I finally cashed out my 401k, I figured I'd invest in the one thing no one makes more of: land. What most folks don't know is that Silver Pine Lake isn't public, never was. It's a man-made reservoir created in the 70s by a now-defunct timber company. When they liquidated, I bought the entire body of water and the submerged land rights for what you might call a retirement hobby. Just me. My little pontoon boat and 47 acres of calm water. Then the HOA showed up. Not when I bought the house. Oh no. That would have been too easy. The HOA, led by a woman named Karen Whitmore, formed 2 years after I moved in. They called it Lakeside Harmony HOA, which is ironic because they've been hell-bent on creating the exact opposite. Karen, bless her tightly wound soul, got herself elected president and immediately started handing out citations like Halloween candy mailbox, too rustic, your lawn is over 4 or 5 inches, no fishing unless you join the HOA's approved angling club, and then came the real kicker. Boats not registered with the HOA are not permitted on Silver Pine Lake. Her newsletter read, all violators will be fined and removed at the owner's expense. At first, I laughed I owned the lake, every legal inch of it. Then I stopped laughing because they weren't joking. One Tuesday morning in April, I came out to find my pontoon boat, which had been docked at my little pier for 3 years, missing. Just gone. A note was zip-tied to the railing. Boat removed for non-compliance. Contact HOA for retrieval. Fine $500 day until registered. I called the number. Karen answered chipper as ever. Hi, this is Karen from Lakeside Harmony. Who am I speaking with, Mr. Barnes? I said. The guy who owns the lake you just stole my boat from. Silence. Well, Mr. Barnes, everyone in this neighborhood shares access to Silver Pine Lake. It's part of the HOA's managed resources now. We voted. That's when I realized what was happening. Karen and her cronies had cooked up some neighborhood vote to include the lake in their jurisdiction. My lake. And folks, I wish I could say the residents knew better. But most of them, they had no idea what they were voting on. Karen worded the motion as establishing recreational oversight of community spaces for safety and harmony. Who wouldn't vote yes to that? Apparently, she even told people that I was just renting waterfront access. Unbelievable. She thought I'd roll over, pay the fine, maybe sign up for their little fishing club, pay dues, and attend monthly lake behavior seminars. I swear to you, those were real. But what Karen didn't know was that I had copies of the original deed, the county land registry, and legal confirmation that the lake was private property, with a strict no-access clause for everyone but me and my designated guests, and I was about to hit her with it hard. So there I was, boat stolen, HOA fines piling up, and a woman named Karen Whitmore walking around like she owned Silver Pine Lake. Problem was, she didn't, I did. And that was about to become very public knowledge. See, what Karen didn't know was that I've spent the better part of my life dealing with bureaucrats, land use lawyers, and municipal red tape thicker than her lipstick. I didn't just own the lake, I had the original deed from 1982. The submerged land rights contract and an environmental easement that prevented exactly the kind of nonsense she was pulling. But before I made my move, I wanted to understand exactly what I was dealing with. Turns out Karen's fishing club wasn't just a bunch of hobbyists with folding chairs and styrofoam coolers. She had monetized the lake. Residents were being charged $200 a year for a lake use permit, plus an extra $50 per guest per season. She even had branded life jackets and laminated ID cards printed, all with HOA dues. And where was that money going? Oh, just straight into a community improvement fund controlled exclusively by you, guessed it, Karen, and 2 of her best friends on the board. Meanwhile, they were holding exclusive HOA lakefront picnics where only registered boaters were allowed to dock. Someone even told me Karen auctioned off one of the boat slips, one that extended over my legally owned shoreline, for $2,500. You better believe I started recording. So here's what I did. Step 1. I drove 2 towns over to Hawthorne County Courthouse and requested a certified copy of the original subdivision map along with HOA jurisdictional filings. Just like I suspected, the lake was never listed as common property. In fact, the property line stopped 15 feet short of the shoreline. Step 2. I met with my real estate lawyer, Mr. Halperin, a cranky but brilliant 68-year-old who once litigated a mineral rights case so well the other guy gave up oil altogether and became a pastor. We drafted a formal cease and desist letter to the HOA, citing trespassing, theft, extortion, and illegal use of private property for monetary gain. And step 3, I filed a police report for theft of personal property, my pontoon boat, and named the HOA as the responsible party. Now, I could have gone straight to court, but I wanted an audience, so I requested to speak at the next HOA community meeting. Karen tried to deny my request, said I wasn't an official HOA member. That's when I politely reminded her that HOA rules don't apply when you're not in the HOA or on HOA land. She couldn't stop me, and I made sure everyone knew it. Come Tuesday night, I walked into that community hall with a folding folder, thicker than a Sunday ham. Residents were already murmuring word had gotten around about the stolen boat, the fishing fees, and something about a lake lawsuit. Karen opened the meeting business as usual. Then I stood up. Hi, I'm Richard Barnes. I live at 45 Dockside Lane. You might know me as the guy with the boat. Or after tonight as the guy who owns the lake. This entire HOA is trying to control dead silence. I started laying it all out. The deed, the lot lines, the registry map, the environmental restrictions, the cease and desist, the police report. Karen turned 3 shades paler with every page I held up. Then I pulled out the kicker. A notarized letter from the county zoning office stating in no uncertain terms that Silver Pine Lake was private property and that no HOA authority extended onto it. Any HOA rule trying to regulate that water was null and void. Somebody gasped. And then someone shouted, "Wait, are you saying Karen's been charging us to use his lake?" I didn't say a word. I just nodded. That meeting went nuclear. People started yelling, HOA board members looking at each other wide-eyed. One man stood up, said he'd paid over $600 for permits last year alone and wanted a refund. Another said his teenage son was kicked off the lake for fishing without a badge. Karen tried to defend herself, said the rules were for safety, but nobody was buying it anymore. Especially not after I played a recording of her telling a resident that I was just a tenant who got lucky with a waterfront lease. That night, the board voted to suspend all lake-related rules pending legal review. Karen stormed out halfway through. The next morning, I got a knock at the door. It was the HOA's treasurer, not Karen, with a sheepish smile and a key. "We had your boat moved back to your dock, Mr. Barnes. And, we're refunding all fines. Official apology letters coming." The local sheriff later confirmed Karen could face charges for misappropriating HOA funds, unlawful towing, and filing a false complaint. Meanwhile, residents called for a special election to remove her from the board. And me, well, I hosted a freedom float party on the lake that weekend. Open invite, free, BBQ. My treat. Today, the lake is calm again. My boat's tied up right where it belongs. And Karen, let's just say she's keeping a low profile. I hear she's trying to move something about needing a break from lake life. But around here, folks still talk about the boat war. Some bring it up at barbecues, others with a chuckle when they paddle past. I don't mind because sometimes the best revenge is just letting people see the truth and letting the system do what it's supposed to do. After the fence came down and Brutus marked his victory with a golden signature, on the last post, I figured things were finally over. Peace had returned to the lake, neighbors waved again. The HOA started sending out normal emails like, "Don't forget trash day" instead of "repaint your mailbox or be fined." Karen, for once, had gone quiet. But quiet never lasts long with people like Karen. Like a cicada that goes underground for years and resurfaces. Screeching, Karen came back this time with wings. Well, kind of. It started with a weird buzzing sound. One Saturday morning, I was trimming hedges when I heard something overhead. Looked up, and there it was, a sleek little gray drone just hovering over my backyard like a cybernetic mosquito. It dipped lower, circled my deck, zoomed toward my garden shed, and then get this, stared into my workshop window. Now, I'm a patient man. I've worked with contractors who forgot what deadline meant, but drones spying on my property. That's a whole new level of HOA harassment. I waved, it hovered. So I did what any good American would do. I went inside and got the hose. Turns out drones don't like cold water. I gave it a good blast, and it jerked sideways like a drunken pigeon. Before zipping back over the treetops, I figured that was that. Oh, how wrong I was. 2 days later, a certified letter landed in my mailbox from Karen. Of course, it was written in that passive-aggressive legalese that only HOA Karen seemed to master. "Dear Mr. Barnes, it has come to our attention via aerial inspection that your backyard contains multiple unapproved structures, including but not limited to an illegal storage shed, a non-regulation dock extension, potentially hazardous material stored near the lakeshore. Furthermore, your aggressive actions against an HOA reconnaissance drone may be subject to legal review." Reconnaissance drone. Reconnaissance drone, like we're in Vietnam and she's part of SEAL Team HOA. And here's the kicker. She ended the letter saying she was filing suit in small claims court for code violations, environmental disruption, and emotional distress caused by hostile behavior. Because I sprayed her drone with a hose, folks, I nearly spit my coffee, so I called Halpern, my no-nonsense attorney who lives for these moments. You're telling me she filed suit based on drone footage she gathered by spying on you? He asked, practically giggling. Yup. And she admitted that in writing. Yup, you want to countersue? Oh, absolutely. This time we went big. Halpern drafted a countersuit citing unauthorized surveillance violation of privacy laws, harassment, and even a little-known Missouri statute about aerial trespass over private lakes. And just for fun, we submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for any drone registration Karen may have filed. Spoiler, she didn't register the drone, not even with the FAA. The court hearing was held in a cramped little municipal building where the judge looked like he'd rather be fly fishing. Karen came in holding a binder thick enough to qualify as a bludgeon. I came in with Halpern and a zip drive full of video clips, documents, and thanks to my neighbor Tom, a high-resolution photo of Karen launching the drone from her deck. The judge looked at Karen's filing. Then he looked at us. Then he asked the most American question ever uttered in small claims court. Ma'am, did you or did you not fly an unregistered surveillance drone over this man's backyard? Karen froze, blinked. It was just for safety. I was ensuring compliance. The judge raised a hand. That's not a yes or no. Yes, she muttered. I did. We submitted the photo, then played the video of the drone hovering outside my workshop window, then submitted FAA drone regulation statutes. Then Halpern dropped the bombshell. Your Honor, we'd also like to submit Exhibit C, the defendant's own letter where she refers to the drone as reconnaissance equipment. The judge took off his glasses. Ma'am, I suggest you withdraw your complaint, Karen sputtered, but he sprayed it with water. The judge gave a slow shrug. It was on his property. You violated FAA guidelines, trespassed, and documented it. Case dismissed, and then he turned to us on, Barnes, your countersuit is valid. Ms. Whitmore will be fined for trespass and harassment. I strongly recommend she cease all aerial activities moving forward. Karen stormed out of that courtroom like her hair was on fire. Problem was, the whole neighborhood already knew Tom had been live texting updates to the community Facebook group. By the time I got home, the post had 62 comments, 44 likes, and someone had already made a meme of Karen's drone with the caption, Operation HOA Mission Failed. The HOA board, still trying to recover from the fence scandal, held an emergency meeting and officially banned personal aerial vehicles used for surveillance. They also issued a letter of censure to Karen, calling her actions unacceptable, unlawful, and unbecoming of a community leader. It was glorious. I used the settlement money. Yep, she had to pay court fees to upgrade my backyard workshop. Brutus got a new doghouse, and I built a nice legal new dock extension. With permits, I even laminated them and hung one next to the barbecue just for fun. Neighbors started visiting more often. We had a drone-free BBQ with matching t-shirts. One guy brought a cake shaped like a drone crashing into a tree. Karen, she stopped showing her face. Word is she's taking a break from HOA activities. Her house is still on the market, but with a property history like hers. Let's just say it's not flying off the shelf. Look, I didn't move out to the lake to fight drone wars and courtroom battles. I came for peace, nature, and maybe a little fishing. But people like Karen, they mistake politeness for weakness. And sometimes all it takes is one good splash from a garden hose to bring their whole power trip crashing down. You'd think after the drone disaster, the court loss, the public shaming, and the HOA banning all aerial spying that Karen would finally pack it up, hang up the power blazer, sell the house, move to a neighborhood where people hadn't already printed t-shirts of her drone crashing into a bird bath. But no, Karen isn't the retreat and reflect type. She's the type who doubles down, convinced she's the misunderstood hero in a story where everyone else somehow got the script wrong. So when surveillance, lawsuits, and fences didn't work, Karen pulled out her final trick, a petition to have me expelled from the community for being hostile, disruptive, and a danger to neighborhood cohesion. I know, sounds made up, but wait till you hear who signed it. It arrived folded in thirds in an unmarked envelope, slipped under my front door like some kind of HOA ransom note. Inside 4 typed pages, a cover letter, or unsigned, in a community petition bearing 38 signatures. The letter demanded my voluntary removal from the HOA adjacent community, citing repeated acts of aggression, harassment of HOA officials, violation of neighborhood standards. Use of water hose as weaponry. I'm not making this up. And then the kicker. We, the undersigned, formally request that Mr. Richard Barnes be removed from Lakeside Harmony and barred from all communal spaces, including lakefront paths and events. Now, here's the thing. I'm not even part of the HOA. I own the lake. My property was never annexed. I opted out legally. I don't use their paths, and trust me, I haven't wanted to attend their Harmony social hour since Karen served me shrimp salad on dry Triscuits. So I read this thing, laughed, then flipped to the signature page. That's when I stopped laughing. Some names were familiar. Tom from down the road. No way he'd sign this. Marjorie, the sweet widow, who always brings me peach cobbler. No chance. And then there was a name that made me blink twice. Douglas K. Riley. Now that name, I knew Doug was my neighbor on the east side. Loved fly fishing, veteran, quiet guy. Had a parrot named Franklin that only said curse words. Doug had died 6 years ago. I'd been at the memorial. I'd brought deviled eggs. I still mow the path down by the bench they put up in his honor. So unless Karen had figured out how to resurrect angry HOA ghosts, something fishy was going on. I made copies, scanned every page, enlarged the signature block. Then I took a ruler and started comparing writing patterns. Out of 38 names, 12 were suspiciously identical in pen pressure and slant. 5 were duplicate names from earlier pages signed twice, and at least 4 people I knew personally swore to me they'd never seen signed or even heard of the petition. I asked Tom about it that evening. He shook his head. Petition Karen just told me she was collecting names for a neighborhood watch list. Same story from 2 other folks. Karen had deceived them into signing, then repurposed the names to file a fake community removal petition, which again had no legal weight because I was never in the HOA. At this point, I had 3 choices. 1, sue Karen for defamation, tempting but expensive. 2, ignore it and wait for her to implode, also tempting. 3, expose the whole thing publicly with style receipts and a little bit of dramatic flair. Guess which one I chose? I asked for a spot on the next HOA open meeting. Again, I wasn't obligated, but the board knew it was safer to let me speak. Than not, the room was packed. People were whispering about the petition all week. Karen sat stiffly at the front, arms crossed, lips tight. I stood up, held the petition aloft like it was Exhibit A in a courtroom drama. Neighbors, friends, and HOA bystanders. I began, I'd like to address the document that claims I'm a threat to this community because I used a garden hose and believe fences should obey gravity and property law. A few chuckles. This petition was submitted by Karen Whitmore, bearing 38 names. The problem. Not all those names belong to the living gasps. I flipped to the back page. Douglas K. Riley, signed on March 4th. Problem is Doug passed away in 2017. He's buried 2 miles from here with a bronze plaque and a parrot who still cusses at delivery men. The room erupted. Someone said I knew that signature looked off, and that's not all. I continued. 5 other people told me Karen misled them. Others had no idea their names were used. Then I dropped the final blow. Forgery, misrepresentation, harassment. You don't need a judge to tell you this isn't leadership. You just need a conscience. The board chair, bless her, looked like she wanted to vanish into her cardigan. They immediately motioned to strike the petition from all records, issue a formal public censure against Karen, ban her from holding any position in the HOA moving forward, report her to the state HOA oversight, body for ethics violations. Karen stood tried to defend herself. Something about misunderstandings and delegated tasks, but nobody bought it. It was over. Within a month, Karen put her house up for sale. The HOA voted in a new president, Tom. Yes, that Tom. The HOA rules were rewritten to prevent future petition-based removals. Karen left behind nothing but a folding table in the clubhouse, an abandoned drone box, and a legacy of HOA shame that people still whisper about by the dock. Today, my lake is quiet. Brutus naps on the deck without fear of being filmed. I host monthly freedom floats, open invite. No HOA badges required. And I get the occasional wave from a neighbor passing by with a grin and a joke. Hey, Richard, anyone else trying to sign you out of your own land lately? Not yet, but I keep a pen handy. Just in case, honestly, thought it was over. After the fake petition, the drone disaster, the fence war, and the fishing club scam, I figured Karen had finally packed her bags and driven off into the sunset, flipping through Zillow listings in a town where people still feared clipboards and passive-aggressive newsletters. But no one sunny Tuesday in May, I got a letter, not from Karen this time, but from the Missouri State Water Authority. It was a formal complaint, filed anonymously, but we all knew who it was. Allegation, unauthorized extraction of surface water from protected sources for potential resale or distribution without permit. Let me translate that for you. This man is stealing water from his own lake that he legally owns. You'd think this was a comedy sketch. I wish it was. Now, I'm no stranger to state paperwork. Back in my working years, I helped draft actual water management policies. I know every clause, every licensing form, every little checkbox on a W-32 surface extraction permit. This complaint alleged that I was pumping water from Silver Pine Lake, bottling it, and potentially selling it to neighbors. Now, unless someone was willing to pay $12.99 for Barnes Artisan hose water, I wasn't exactly running an underground Dasani factory in my shed, but the state takes these things seriously. A field agent called to schedule an on-site inspection. I said, sure thing. Come on by, I'll even make coffee. The day of the inspection, a guy named Lewis showed up. Nice enough fellow, early 40s khakis, government-issue sunglasses. He looked around, asked questions, took photos of my dock, the hose spigot, the water barrel I used to irrigate my tomato plants. Then he asked, dead serious, do you currently bottle or sell any water from Silver Pine Lake? I laughed. Lewis, I can barely remember to water my roses, let alone start a water distribution company. He chuckled too, said this complaint has no evidence attached. It's written like someone was mad at you personally. I handed him a folder with copies of my deed lake ownership documents, past court rulings, and the fun part, a signed statement from the HOA board confirming there were no community water resources or shared utilities connected to my property. Lewis flipped through it, nodded, and said, yeah, this is going nowhere. 2 weeks later, I got the official state report, case closed. No violations, no permits required, no further action. Karen's anonymous filing had been flagged for potential abuse of state complaint processes, a fancy way of saying, stop wasting everyone's time. But it didn't stop there. The state forwarded a summary of the complaint to the HOA board, citing that a resident had filed a false malicious claim without any basis. Tom, our new HOA president, read it aloud at the next meeting. Right after the line intentional misrepresentation of water use, someone in the crowd actually booed. Karen wasn't there. Word was she'd quietly moved out the week prior. No for sale sign. Just a moving truck at 6 a.m. and a very grumpy man loading a patio set that definitely looked HOA regulation approved. And just like that, it was over. The lake was calm again. No drones, no fences, no fines. My boat's still floating. Brutus still patrolling. I put up a new sign by the dock that says, private lake, no fishing, no fences, no funny business. And underneath in smaller letters, yes, Karen, this means you. Neighbors chuckled every time they passed by. I even started a little newsletter of my own. Not HOA stuff, just local fishing reports, garden tips, and the occasional recipe for peach cobbler, courtesy of Marjorie down the road. People say the community feels different now. Calmer, kinder, more human. Let me be clear. Not all HOAs are bad. Structure matters. Communities need order, but order without humility turns into control. And control without respect turns into tyranny. 1 yard, citation at a time. Karen forgot that. She thought rules gave her power. But real power is knowing where the lines are and having the decency not to cross them. If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry a Karen with too much time and too little common sense, or just a neighbor who thought they owned your fence, drop your story in the comments. Seriously, I read them all. Got a Karen story crazier than mine? Tell me about it. I might even feature it in a future episode. And hey, if you made it through all 6 parts, thank you. I never thought a boat, a lake, and one very determined bulldog would take me and you on such a ride. So like, comment, and share this with anyone who's ever had to say the words. Actually, I checked the bylaws.